Now, if that wasn't an inventive intro, I'm not sure what is. Hopefully you picked up I said hi there on the keyboard without actually saying anything. Now you know what I was trying to say. But anyway, this is a review for the Roccat Vulcan TKL. Of course, it's a TKL that stands for 10 keyless mechanical keyboard. Now you can find it for around £120 in the UK and around $110 in the US. The locally link in the description below will take you to your localized Amazon store, and also down in the description you'll find some alternatives you might want to consider. And if you're on social media, I'd very much appreciate a follow on Twitter or on Instagram, for example. It'll be on your screen right now, or indeed in the description below, and there'll also be a link to my website, which is TotallyEV. So if you're interested in keeping up with the latest news or reviews of hybrid or electric vehicles, definitely do check out TotallyEV. So getting straight into it, the keyboard itself comes with a USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable, and that's indeed because it does connect over a USB Type-C input found at the middle section of the keyboard. Now, under it, you've got rubberized mats, and although this is not surprising, it's nice to see that Roccat have spent a little bit of attention to detail where you've got it on both the keyboard riser and on the flat surface, so no matter if you use it in either mode, the keyboard is not going to slide around on hard surfaces like the one I've got over here. Now, the keyboard itself is really well built. I really do like the kind of unique design, and it's something that really sets itself aside from the rest of the keyboard market, purely because it's got an exposed switch and a very flat keycap, which makes it quite unique looking. And we'll talk about the key switch performance and how it feels when it comes to gaming and typing in just a bit. The keyboard itself has got also a aluminium frame, which basically prevents from any sort of keyboard flex, so no matter how hard you're going to be typing, bashing it, or trying to twist it, that's not going to be an issue whatsoever. Now, a small little touch, which also is very much appreciated, comes from the key switches, the keycaps, and the end keycaps. Now, the end keycaps are slightly curved. I don't know if my camera is going to be able to pick this up, but the slight curvature, for example, on the control key over here makes it a little bit, just a little bit more comfortable in comparison to, let's say, the A switch over here, which is pretty much flat, or just a very slight angle over here. The kind of curved edge of it makes it just really nice to type on, and furthermore, if you're going to be using it, let's say on a game where you're going to use Control, for example, or let's say Alt or even Shift even, it just feels just a little bit softer and just a little bit nicer. A very small touch yet again, but one that's appreciated. Elsewhere, I do like the fact you've got a physical and very clicky feeling volume wheel, and one that also corresponds with the mute button, and this will adjust the media. So now, plugging in the keyboard through the USB Type-C input, what you'll notice is that there's RGB lights that illuminate. You can customize this, and I'll show you across in the Swarm software section, but essentially, yes, you do have RGB lights. Yes, they can be customized to your heart's content. Here I've got a very slow wave function. Now here, in terms of the look of it, it's very much subjective. I don't really personally rave about RGB lights, but it's nice to see the option specifically at this price point. Now, before moving on, I do want to mention in terms of dimension, they'll be on your screen down below, but of course this is a TKL keyboard, therefore you don't have the number pad found on the right hand side. Of course, this is done for two reasons. One, for you to have a reduced size of your keyboard, and therefore if you're not going to use those number pads, then it's kind of like redundant. And furthermore, also to reduce the distance between your left and right hand. So imagine the right hand side is my mouse and the left hand side is my WASD keys. It just basically reduces distance, whereas with a number pad it'll be further apart from each other and therefore might not be as comfortable in terms of your posture. That's really one of the key selling points for TKL keyboards, namely when it comes to gamers. Now, with that out of the way, let's get on to a little sound demo. Now, with the sound test out of the way, let's get on to my subjective opinion about the keyboard. And here I have to mention a few of its specs before actually getting in terms of the performance side. Here the keyboard is rated at 50 million keystrokes, and it's also got an actuation of 1.4 millimeters at least, using the Roccat Titan linear switch, so not the tactile one, which has a slightly different actuation point. It also has a Cherry MX stem, so if you want to replace the keycaps, you can do so if you so wish, as in be it for longevity, or let's say if you don't like that kind of flat, slim type of keycap. Speaking of which, the keycaps are really well spaced out. I had no issues when it came to typing. It didn't feel crammed, and yes, it was a TKL keyboard and therefore didn't have a numpad, but I had no issues whatsoever when it came to typing. Likewise, when it came for gaming, the linear switch was really ideal in this respect. Even though I'm someone who prefers the Cherry MX brown switch, I had no issues whatsoever transitioning to this keyboard and using it as my daily driver for a little while. Now on that note, as I mentioned before, due to it being a TKL keyboard, it was actually more comfortable to game on in comparison to a full-size keyboard and keyboards that I'm usually used to. Now, aside from all of that, I'm not sure if my microphone was being able to pick it up and you guys were able to hear it, but there is a slight sort of spring back type of sound, something that I've noted in some other keyboards out there, namely ones which are quite thin or kind of versatile. And in this respect, the Roccat keyboard also suffers from this spring back type of sound. So while it was nice to type on and I had no issues, and furthermore the performance of it was perfectly fine, the noise that it was giving off if I released the key in a certain way made me feel a little bit, well, not say uncomfortable, but just didn't really make me appreciate typing in silence, if that makes sense. Specifically, as someone who writes a lot of reviews, I end up typing without any music or any sort of distractions around me, and that kind of spring back sound just took away a little bit of my concentration. Of course, this is subjective, and I'm not sure if it will going to affect you as much, but for me, in my case, I found myself a little bit annoyed at the fact that this keyboard had this kind of spring back sound. Now onto the Roccat Swarm software, which I've been using for about a year or so with my Kane 120 AMO, and I've had no real issues other than regular updates that come and spring up to you. Now through the general features, you can have some odd sounds, so you can have a sound feedback that plays back when you type. I completely disabled that, and you can have the you can change like the cursor blink rate, the repeat rate as you'd normally expect on, let's say, a keyboard. Now the key assignments is when things become quite interesting, because you can customize the keys, not only the singular key function but also the easy shift plus function, which gives you basically a second array of keys per key, if that makes sense. You can assign macros as well, and you can assign different multimedia functions. Essentially it just does everything that you want, and there's so much customization over here, it's pretty ridiculous. Now in terms of the macros themselves, you can create them. There is a macro manager over here. If you were to click that, and you can see over here you've got preset macros per game, and then of course you can create your own customized ones. So for example, for me on Counter-Strike, there's a few different ones that you can set yourself. So there you go, there's whole different macros that you can set and you can enable or disable. Now in terms of key elimination, you've got a variety of different functions to choose from. You can use the FN and arrow keys in order to adjust the kind of the speed and also the brightness of them, but you can do this directly from the software as well. You can customize it as well, so you can see over here you can drag and you can select a certain color for that section that you've just you've chosen. I think most people will probably prefer a set one, and in my case the wave one does exactly what I like. You can set the speed and you can set the brightness as well. Other than that, there's not really much else to say other than the fact that it has an AMO integration, where therefore you can enable it if you have other Roccat software and they can work in cohesion together. As you can see, I don't actually use it at all, but you can do so if you so wish. And so this all really leads me on to my verdict. Now the keyboard itself does a lot right. It's got a really unique design. It feels really nice to type on, and the performance, so to speak, of it is fantastic. It also has great software integration, which does work in real time, and I had no issues whatsoever running it on my Windows 10 machine. However, fundamentally, there's two things that you should consider here. One is the price. It's around £120 or $110 in the US, and at this price point, you'd expect it to be absolutely flawless. And unfortunately, it isn't, because it's got this kind of spring back pinging type of sound. Now, while it might not annoy some people, it's certainly not a feature that I would expect on a premium TKL keyboard. Now you might be watching this video while the keyboard's on a sale. You might be watching it because you found it used and you want to buy it on a cheaper price, or whatever it might be. It's still worth considering that at around £80 or around $80 you can find some other fantastic TKL keyboards, and ones which won't suffer from this issue and equally have the great performance traits of any sort of full-size or TKL mechanical keyboard. So as a result, my personal favourite would still stick with the Keychron K2, not only because it's a TKL fully mechanical keyboard, but it's also got Bluetooth compatibility in there as well, alongside wired, which truly trumps this keyboard in this respect because it's got more features built in and doesn't suffer from any sort of issues. So that's just my personal take on it and my personal suggestions. I'd be very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, so definitely do let me know. And of course, if you like this unbiased, independent review, give it a like, subscribe to see more, and favour and share, as it always helps the channel grow. Alright, I've been Totally Dubbed, take care, and bye bye.